Yesterday I was having lunch with some friends, and although we were eating Chinese food, somehow the subject got around to pizza. And knowing I'm on a keto diet, they asked me if I had tried a cauliflower pizza crust yet. No, I hadn't, but I was intrigued and I like pizza, so I decided to do some research online. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, some of which are just awful, but there are some really good ones, really good videos on YouTube on how to make this pizza crust. So that's what I want to do today. I'm going to start off by making a cauliflower pizza crust, and then I'm going to use that to make a simple pizza for myself. I have a head of cauliflower here, and what some people do is they take the individual groups of florets and they use a coarse shredder and they cut off the florets that they use. I'm actually going to cut these off with a knife and then put them in my food processor because it'll just be easier. What I need is 2 cups of the florets shredded, and I don't have a measurement for that yet as far as weight. I'll weigh it when I get to 2 cups and tell you how many grams I have. I have in my food processor what I guess is enough to yield 2 cups. And what I want to do is I want to pulse this cauliflower down, break it up until it has the consistency of maybe a little bit coarser than cornmeal, small rice, that sort of thing. If you have a small food processor, you may have to do this in batches. Okay, I think I've got what I want there. Let's look at it. So there it is. It's got a grainy texture. Looks like small pebbles, like little rice. I'm going to measure this and see if I have 2 cups, and then I'll tell you what the weight is in grams. So there it is. I got just 2 cups out of that. I guessed very well. Now I'm going to put this on a scale that's set to gram weight and tell you what I've got for total grams. This is 283 grams, so 280 to 290 grams of cauliflower florets should be good enough. I'm heating a large skillet over medium heat, and I'm going to put my cauliflower florets in there, and I'm going to cook this, no oil, no water. There's a lot of water in cauliflower, so I need to cook the water off. That's going to take about maybe 8 to 10 minutes. I'm going to be stirring this often because I don't need to brown the cauliflower. I just need to cook the water off. Maybe you can already see some of the steam rising. I just turned the heat off under this. Again, that was 10 minutes now over medium heat. How do you know when it's dry enough? Well, a couple of things I thought of is, one, you'll hear it stop hissing or sizzling in the pan. That means most of the moisture has come off, and also you'll see less steam rising. You might even see a little bit of browning in the bottom of the pan. This hasn't been browned, it's still white, but this appears to be very dry now. So I'm gonna let this cool off, and then I'll be ready to mix my pizza crust. Now I'm ready to start assembling my pizza crust. So what I have here is 1 cup. This came in at 90 grams of shredded cheese. I'm using Romano because I like it. It's a little saltier, but you can use Parmesan if you'd like. The videos I saw said to use a hard cheese like Parmesan or Romano, not to use a soft cheese like mozzarella. And then I have here 1 large egg. And I'm going to break in there. And I'm going to mix this up and get this all distributed well. My egg and my cheese now are well combined, so I'm adding my cooled cauliflower. And then I'm going to mix this until this seems pretty well blended together. That might take a minute or two to get this all distributed. I lined a pizza pan with some parchment paper. I'm going to transfer my cauliflower mixture onto the parchment paper, like so. And then with clean hands, I did wash my hands. I've actually been washing dishes, so my hands are clean. I'm going to start pressing this down into a thin crust, from what I saw on the internet, about 1/4 of an inch thick, and a little bit thicker around the edges, so that when this bakes, it won't brown too much around the edges. And speaking of baking, I'm heating my oven up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 degrees Celsius. So give me a few minutes to shape this, and then I'll pop this in the oven to bake. So there's my pizza crust ready to go into the oven. Again, I've heated my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 Celsius. I'm going to bake this until it's nicely browned on the top and around the edges. That should take about 15 to 20 minutes. So there's my pizza crust out of the oven. This took 25 minutes to get this to start browning nicely. And what I'm going to do, because I need this to cool down so I can handle it well, I'm going to grab my pan and slide this off onto the cooling rack. I'll return it back to that pan later. Oh, and by the way, these are called pizza. I think this is a pizza grabber. I got this on Amazon. They sell them on Amazon. It's for grabbing a baking sheet. I use it a lot. So there's my crust now. That's cooled down. It's got a nice texture to it. I'm going to spread some of my homemade pizza sauce on here, which is basically a marinara sauce. I have on my website a recipe for marinara. And I just cook this thicker, and I make sure there's more oregano in it. To me, oregano is a nice flavor to go on pizza. And yes, if you heard that, that's a plane going overhead. I don't like a lot of sauce on my pizza, so that should be just about enough right there. And then I'm going to sprinkle some mozzarella cheese on there. Not a lot. Just enough for some cheese flavor. And then, because on a keto diet, you have to be conscious of protein as well as carbs, I'm not going to use a lot of meats. So I'm just going to put 6 slices of pepperoni on there. And then on this half, I'm going to put a few slices of cooked Italian sausage. About one more, I think. One more right there. Then I'm going to put that in the oven until that cheese melts and it browns a little bit more around the edges, and maybe even see some browning of the cheese on top. I just took this out of the oven again because I forgot. I wanted to add some more oregano on top. Not a lot, just a light sprinkling. So I think oregano is a great herb to put on pizza. Okay, now that can go into the oven. So there it is, out of the oven again. I started to get a little bit of browning on this side, but not on this side. That's a little unusual. And I got more browning around the edges. So again, I'm going to transfer that to the cooling rack. I'll let that cool for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then I'll be able to cut that and see what that tastes like. And this, I would say, would feed make 4 pieces for 2 people, or you could cut it into 6 pieces for 2 or 3 people. So there it is. This has had a chance to cool a little bit. I'm going to put a couple of slices on a plate for myself. Now, this isn't going to taste like a yeast dough crust. It's not going to be crisp underneath like one would be. The idea is to make a pizza that someone on a keto diet can enjoy, and a pizza that someone who might be gluten intolerant can enjoy. All right, so there are my pieces. Let's see what this is going to taste like. Oh, and I thought of one thing. I want to experiment one time making this pizza again, but rather than cooking it the second time, baking it the second time on the baking sheet, put it on that cooling rack so that there's hot air underneath that can help to dry out the bottom and maybe crisp that bottom a little bit. Okay, this is my first time ever tasting a pizza, holds up nicely, made with a cauliflower pizza crust. Good. Again, it doesn't taste like a pizzeria pizza with a yeast dough crust, but it's got a really good cheesy flavor, especially in the crust because of the Romano cheese that's in the crust. And it tastes like pizza. It's actually very good. So excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy my dinner of pizza made with a cauliflower pizza crust.